As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Welcome to Wired to Hunt's Rut Fresh Radio, bringing you the latest reports from the Whitetail Woods. Presented by First Light, creating proven, versatile hunting apparel for the stand, saddle, or blind. First Light. Go farther, stay longer. And now, your hosts, KC Smith and Tyler Jones.
This is Rut Fresh. I'm your host, Tyler Jones, and this week, as hunters are leaving the woods, those of you that stay the course will find hope in these reports, as cold weather seems to be the catalyst for big buck daylight movement. It's the late season, y'all, and it's going to be great. This is Rut Fresh. Let's go. This is Rut Fresh Radio, brought to you by First Light. Hey, we are in different spots right now, KC, but we're both in Texas, and we are, 7-8 hours apart from each other, and we're still both in Texas. Isn't that wild how big this place is?
It is insane, and honestly, we're only about half a state apart right now, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I guarantee you there's
further distances to go than this.
For sure. So, that's what people don't understand is we could do Texas about near every week if we wanted, and it would be like, not too many people interested, but it would for sure cover different ruts and different dynamics within the herds,
It's like, what's the difference in doing Delaware and New Hampshire? It's like, well, those are the same place. It's like interviewing somebody from Greenville and then interviewing somebody from Texarkana. It's like, well, that's the same place.
Yeah, or
it's not.
It'd be like interviewing somebody from Ohio and somebody from Michigan.
Yeah, man, same place.
Same place.
If you get cheese curds there, it's the same place.
Speaking of cheese, man, you gonna be eating some of that cojita pretty soon?
Yeah, I'm about to try some. We're down here in the land of many tequieras and tequieras muchos, as you'd say. So we're gonna do the tour. One of the things that we do down here is we come down here to eat Mexican food, and then we deer hunt in the morning and the evening while we're here. So it works really well.
Food tour, man.
Yeah, that's it.
It's kind of like going to New Orleans, man. You just go down there for the food, and randomly there's things like duck hunting and other things you can do while you're down there.
That's true. Or step over people that are just passed down on the curb. Like it's a wild thing.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't really want to go there, but there are some nice places in this world you can get away from folks and find some deer. And Tyler, just to be reflective, this isn't the last episode of Rut Fresh Radio.
Thankfully.
We're getting towards the end.
Thankfully,
right?
Yep.
We got one more to do after this.
I wish there was hundreds more to do, but
yeah, I know, man.
There are only so many weeks in the year,
I know it, man. I know it. If you're listening and you live in a unique state and you want to do an interview on the 26th of December, let us know because it's going to be a tough day to get some reports. But we're going to do our best to get good reports around the country for everybody, and we've done it this week. But, man, if you want a Mexican food report, I can probably give you that.
Yeah, what are you fixing to get there for lunch?
Well, I think this is a place that's known for its burritos. So I feel as if it's going to be a little bit, Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
But if I had to imagine, I'm going to get an El Pastor, which is roasted pork. For those of y'all that don't know, and it's pork that's flavored with
more chili powder than you can handle.
Yeah, it's like chilies arboles or something like that. It's rehydrated chilies and pineapple, which is really, really good. And then I'm probably going to eat some pico de gallo with that and some sour cream, which I know makes
you say gallo de cielo?
Yeah, that's him up there in the sky. And then, I might wash it down with a big old glass Coke if I get the chance.
Dude, That's exactly what I ate yesterday, except for old Gorditas doesn't really offer the pineapple upsell there, which I really am sad about. But it is a good, thing to have. But the Mexican Coke, there's a lot of people probably listening that don't understand the difference in a Coke and a Mexican Coke, and there's a difference.
Yeah, well, the main difference is a Mexican Coke is made with cane sugar. It ain't made with high fructose corn syrup. So
you know what?
It's better.
Yeah, and you know what Diet Cokes are made from in Mexico?
Oh,
same thing.
Know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's called I think it's called Coke Light.
Coke Light.
Yeah, so they just put less sugar in it.
I got one of those in here. That sounds pretty good.
Oh, they're
less
tasty.
Sugar.
Yeah.
I bet, dude. That sounds real good.
Yeah, dude.
That.
Hey, some cultures don't accept all this high fructose stuff, man. Good. Red dyes, I know Red 40 is one of your favorite ingredients, but you know.
I stopped at 39. Look, you're talking about Texas having diverse ruts. Didn't you see some rut action in East Texas yourself this week?
Dude, like I said, we're 7-something hours apart probably, and I was in a rut fest yesterday morning. Actually, I was hanging out in the swamplands of East Texas. We were hunting hogs. I was hunting hogs. Eric was filming, and we make a loop down into the wind, come back up into the wind. And we're going to work through these greenbrier thickets. It's kind of got the understory under the trees. It's fairly open. There's like some taller grass sections and stuff, but there's greenbrier thickets these pigs like to bed up in. So in the morning, about I don't know what time it was, probably 8:30. We're coming back through these greenbrier thickets, and I come around the edge of one, and I see what looks like a deer, 80 yards, and sure enough, starts moving. So we chill. And long story short, we were in a 25-minute just snorting and grunting, snort-wheezing and grunting and running rut fest with 2 bucks and about 4 does. And one of the does, I guess the 6-month-old, fawn was seemed to be in heat. And, dude, I had like a nice 10-point. I'm talking like probably, here's the thing, is probably like maybe mid-130s type of 10-point, but, if you look at it respective to its body, it's a sizable deer, Yeah,
where we live, that's a good-sized deer. I mean, that thing weighs 170 pounds maybe.
Max. I don't think it weighs that because I think this deer might not be 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so, I mean, he's 3, but I don't know if he's 4 for sure. And he's just rutting like crazy, dude. Just chasing these things, like I said, snort wheezing. It was cool. We stayed there, like I said, for 25 minutes, and he ran through a couple times. Had him at 49 broadside with a bow in my hand. And the landowner hasn't given us permission to deer hunt, so I respectfully passed on him. I actually never even considered it, because this is a good friend of mine, and I don't want to. I would never do that if he didn't want me to at all. So,
well, you should have drew on him just to see if you could do it,
Oh, yeah. No, that's what you do on TV, don't you? You draw on them, point at them, and even though you don't have the intention of killing that thing, if your bow goes off, it kills him. So
that's it. A good friend of ours, Chris Webb, he thought he just wanted to draw back on a buck this year to see if he could do it, and he drew back, and he's like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot.
Yeah, that's funny how that happens.
So, yeah, killers kill, so you don't want to put yourself in that situation.
No, that's a flirting with temptation's not a good thing, So
that's it, man. That's it. Well, it sounds like you saw some exciting stuff this week. Who else did we get to hear from this week?
Well, there's a guy that's going to be a breeder eater in that truck with you, old Greg. And he gave me the report from y'all's neck of the woods this week, so you'll be hearing that. Yeah. Micah Morgan, brother of Levi. If you guys know Levi Morgan, he's a fairly popular bow hunter and bow shooter. Micah was in Mississippi with Levi, I think.
Micah is the one that throws it down on the footage most of the time.
That's right. He's usually videoing, but I think he gets about a week a year to hunt, and he killed him a good buck in Mississippi and has a report for us there. We talked to Mark Haslam earlier this year from South Carolina. Got a really unique property in a unique area for deer hunting. Apparently, there's lots of deer in that his neck of the woods, and kind of a different rut. So we get to hear from him out in South Carolina. And then another guy we've heard from this year, different state, Anthony Warren in Kentucky. He's been hunting the late season stuff there, which he actually kind of likes, I think, especially when he gets a little cooler weather. He likes that stuff. So we'll get to hear from those guys. And then hopefully next week we get a big buck down report from you guys.
Man, I would love to bring it.
I've got Greg Latham. He's actually with the Element, and he's in Texas. Greg, you have hunted Texas the last couple of weeks, and you've been, I don't know, hunting places that are 7 hours from each other. So It's a big state. There's a lot going on, but let's talk about what you've been seeing recently in the deer hunting woods.
Yeah, I ended up killing a buck in the hill country a couple weeks ago, and he was on the cruise. Caught him on a bunch of trail cameras, and actually saw him that day before I killed him. But seemed like he was running laps around the property. Mm-hmm. And this was on November 24th. Mm-hmm. So like right about Thanksgiving. I mean, he was cruising hard.
Gotcha. So what, I mean, like recently, what's been going on in the woods when you've been hunting Texas?
Now, recently down in South Texas, different rut dates, but here the last couple days, they've been fired up. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen a bunch of young bucks cruising and right behind does, but this morning it seemed like the big bucks were on their feet cruising.
Mm-hmm. So seeing some cruising. I know you and I talked off air a little bit. That seemed like there may be, and I think KC was talking to me about some stuff that might be seeing some lockdown type stuff happening too.
Yeah, me and Casey are hunting pretty close together this morning, and we were both on lockdown bucks the whole time. I saw probably 3 bucks over 3.5 years old. Just, you could tell they were doing the stare. They were on lockdown, and things are starting to get fired up down in South Texas.
What do you focus on when you're like, I'm going to go in there this morning to see if there's some bucks around there?
I'm mostly just trying to, ease my way in and get on a high point where I can see a long distance. Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking for, when the sun comes up, they really light up. But I'm just looking for, you'll see satellite bucks cruising around, and that usually points you in the right direction where you need to be.
So just kind of following the satellite bucks until you get into a rut fest or some sort of lockdown situation?
Yeah, that's the basic idea of what I've been trying to do.
Gotcha. Is there any, are they feeding on anything? Are you able to kind of see if there's a bed to feed pattern at all, or is it just a lot of just brush country cruising type stuff?
It seems to be a lot of brush country cruising. I mean, it seems like they pretty much feed wherever. Like it's, there's tons of diverse plants and stuff to eat. So they could be anywhere and they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, do the does seem receptive yet? Would you say that like there's quite a bit of breeding going on, or are these bucks still waiting for the majority of the does to be receptive, if you had to guess?
I feel like it's right on the cusp. It hasn't happened yet, but like the next 2 to 3 days, it's gonna be crazy.
Gotcha. Okay. So in that next 2 to 3 days, are you still going to focus on getting up high and seeing deer, or would you change your tactics at all? And what do you think the deer will do as things change a little bit?
I think the big bucks seem to push the does off into like weird spots that other bucks can't get downwind of them. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like getting up, say maybe it's a cliff or just some kind of thicket that a buck will push a doe up in. Getting in an area like that could really be beneficial.
Yeah. Would you say a highway or a road would be a place that would happen too, maybe?
Yeah, highway, road, any kind of just place where a deer's not going to be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A big buck might push a doe up against something like that. Gotcha.
So checking out the spots that are kind of unsuspecting. So if you had to put a number on it, 1 to 10, what do you think buck movement will be like after, basically, I don't know, the 20th or so?
I'd say where we're hunting right now, it's the next week or so. I'd give it an 8.
Oh yeah.
Like it's about to pop off down here.
Yeah. Yeah. So in your mind, does a 10 happen every year, or is a 10 the best of all time?
I think a 10 might be best of all time. A 9 happens every year, I think.
Okay. I got you. See, when I think about it, I consider a 10 is scale of 1 to 10 is like the best day of the year. So I'm interested in how people perceive that. So anyway, I appreciate the report, Greg. I hope you get a mondo. For those who are interested, Greg actually hunted with, you guys know him as Mark Kenyon, on a hunt last year on the Buck Truck Series and killed a buck on that video. You can see it on the Meat Eater channel. So check it out. Thanks a bunch, Greg.
All right. No problem.
All right, now I've got Micah Morgan on the phone. He's the brother of Levi, as we talked about earlier off the air. Micah, what's been going on, man?
Oh, not much. Just been chasing whitetails since September.
Yeah,
just now starting to slow down a little bit.
I know the feeling, man. It's good to be home at the end of the year for sure, man. This time of year, especially.
Absolutely, yeah. Take any minute I can get.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been in Mississippi recently, and it looked like you had some success. I guess you get in front of the camera sometimes, or was there no cameras running?
Yeah, I did. I get about maybe a week, 2 weeks out of the year to hunt for myself, and that was one of them. And yeah, we got it all on film, so it was a heck of a week for sure.
Cool, man. That's awesome. What was the deer herd doing where you're at?
It was pretty peak rut down where we were at that time of year. Bucks were chasing, little bucks were, surrounding the buck with the does, trying to get in on them, running them off, just pretty much your peak rut activity.
Yeah, that's cool. So with the buck you shot, was he actually chasing, or what was he doing?
No, he actually, I'm assuming he had just left the doe, because we had pictures of him about 5 days before I seen him, and he was with a doe, and he completely disappeared. So we assumed he would lock down somewhere. And when I seen him, he was actually by himself. So he was off his doe cruising, probably for another one. Gotcha. Were you any chance you were hunting like an ag field or a food plot? I wasn't. I was actually in the hardwoods. And down there, kind of where we hunt, you're hunting structure, and like the ridge might only be 5 feet tall, but that's what they're on. They're cruising that ridge, going from thicket to thicket. So I was kind of in between. I was on the edge of a field, probably 150 yards. And that buck was just cruising. He came out of one thicket, and I saw him for maybe 10 seconds. He was headed for another thicket, and I wound up having to grunt him from about 100 yards all the way in. So that's cool, man. He was cruising pretty heavy, yeah. Yeah. So those ridges are just, I guess you're hunting in pretty lowland country, I'm guessing. Is that right? Yeah. And so those ridges, right on the Mississippi. Okay. And those, I'm guessing, in my experience at least, those ridges are kind of where some underbrush will grow because it doesn't flood as often as the other stuff, I'm guessing, right? So that's why there's thickets there. Okay. So are there oak trees in the area? There are oak trees, yeah. And normally, like earlier in the season, that's what we're hunting around is oak trees and then any kind of persimmon trees. But this time of year, they're not very interested in food, so you're really just hunting structure. I got you. Okay. So if you were hunting next week, would things change? Would you still stay on the ridges? Do you think it's going to be still pretty rut heavy, or what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, I mean, it is kind of hard to say. Now, we've hunted down there for the last, I'd say, 6 years, and for probably the first 3 weeks of December, it's pretty rut heavy. I mean, they're rutting, doing their thing up until really around Christmas to New Year's. And even after New Year's, there's still a few does in heat, and they're still chasing. So I would probably be doing the same thing next week if I was hunting.
Gotcha. Did you do any calling this past week?
I did a little bit. Normally when I would see one and he was going the opposite way, that's when I would call. It's really hard to do any kind of blind calling down there just because it's so thick they can get in behind you, and most of the time those big mature ones, that's what they're doing. They're coming downwind of you.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Did a little bit though. I did do a little bit. If it got slow, I might hit the horns together, but
it's hard.
Not a whole lot.
It's hard not to when you're sitting there just like, man, I kind of want to make something happen right now.
Yeah, there's one close, just ain't seeing them, but
yeah. So
I didn't do a whole lot.
Would you still continue in the next week rattling and would you do any blind calling at all, or does it change, or is it pretty much the same tactics?
Honestly, I will do blind calling if I can back myself up to the Mississippi River and have that wind blowing over where they can't get downwind of me, or if I'm hunting a spot where it's open downwind where I can see them coming, and I can potentially, if they're trying to circle downwind, you can get a little more aggressive and potentially turn them before they get downwind. But
sure, I got you.
Yeah, that's probably what I would do.
Okay, so in the next week, if you had to put a number on the buck movement on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate it?
In the next week, I would probably put it up to a 7 or 8.
All right.
And that's going off of where we hunt down there. It's normally rolling pretty good still. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate the report, dude, and I hope you guys have a blessed Christmas and a good rest of your season, man. It's been good, fun watching you guys, and it looks like you've had a great season, you and Levi both.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate the time, and I hope you guys have a blessed Christmas as well.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
All right, I've got Mark Haslam. He's out in South Carolina, and we had him earlier this year. Now we're on the opposite side of what the people traditionally think of the rut. Is that the case for you, or what is the rut like in your area, Mark?
That's right, Tyler. Our rut activity as far as breeding will start the third week in October. I'm in the Midlands of South Carolina, but that's big portion of South Carolina and Georgia is going to start the third, fourth week in October.
Gotcha. So we're looking at pretty far removed from the rut, probably a lot of post-rut here. You've been hunting the last week or so. What's that all look like for you?
Right now, most of our deer herd, they are back just pounding food sources, whether it's a late season winter food plot, or if maybe there's still some acorns on the ground, or trying to hitting some remnants that's left in agricultural fields, which are all harvested right now. But it's good and cold down here finally in the south, and we've gotten a lot of rain, especially this past week. Tons of rain with that cold weather. So these deer, they've been out on my cameras earlier in the afternoon and just pounding food sources, what they should be doing. They're burning more calories right now, the cold. And as far as rut activity and bucks, we're still seeing some fresh scrapes and rubs. And that's from what my cameras are showing. That's mostly younger bucks. But if you are in an area where you have a lot of, if the doe population is a little out of whack, you might have some does that weren't bred the first cycle or two that could be cycling back in.
Gotcha. Are you seeing mature bucks showing up on that food before dark right now or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. We haven't seen any mature buck rut type behavior. They are back. I've been running more cameras right now, kind of in the season, trying to see what we have survey wise, because our season ends January 1st, and I'm getting some nice up and comers, and there's a couple shooters that have made it through the season that are coming out an hour before dark, and they are just pounding that food, probably trying to put some weight back on.
Sure. Okay. So, and you guys have been killing some does, I guess, lately?
Yes, we are. We have been trying to hit our management number, and we are, I think, on track to have a record year at the farm for total does and actually total deer killed. And right now, I shot a couple last week, and killing does right now, you've just got to be unpredictable because they've been deer across the board have been hunted hard in South Carolina since mid-September, if not mid-August. They've seen it all. So I've been concentrating on doe bedding sites, and some of those bedding sites can shift because right now we finally have some good frost, and most of our leaves are off the ground finally. So some of the bedding that was there in September, October might have changed by now. Some of those might have opened up. Mm-hmm. And also with it being so cold all of a sudden in the South, which we really haven't had so far, they are bedding in some open areas, old fields, broom sage grass, some, basically to get some cover, but they're within sunlight during the day to keep them warm.
Sure. So you guys, part of this doe harvest, and what you can probably tell as a listener from this is that you're pretty intensive about the way you manage this. What are you learning from the doe harvest right now?
Tyler, man, we are learning all kinds of stuff. We last week my father killed a 77-pound fawn doe that was bred roughly November 2nd. So that was a milestone for us.
Wow.
A fawn doe that was born 6 months ago reached sexual maturity, and she was bred November 2nd. So that told us that there's a lot more does that are going in heat late October or early November than we once thought. Mm-hmm. That's a sign of a healthy doe. And right now, killing does, whether you're on public land or private land, if you are able to take a doe, you can look for that reproductive track, and you can pick up a very inexpensive fetus scale, and you can open up, and it's created by biologist Joe Hamilton, and it'll tell you pretty precisely exactly when that doe was bred. So if you can figure that out and you get a couple samples, like I said, anywhere in the country, as long as the does are about 30-35 days post-breeding, you'll know when they were bred, and then the week prior leading up to that, that's when the bucks are going to be on their feet, chasing on the prowl, waiting for those does to have that receptive window.
Gotcha. Man, that's good information. So in the next week, would you change anything about what you guys are doing, or are you going to stick with the plan pretty much?
We're going to stick with the plan, Tyler. I think the rest of the season has to be unpredictable. And I know that's obvious to all the listeners, but you really got to understand that, it's a prey-predator relationship. They're trying to live, and we're trying to fill tags. So they've seen a lot so far this season. I'm going to be hunting very tight to bedding, trying to figure out where they're feeding and cutting them off at first light. And, keep in mind, especially in the South, we're experiencing some very cold weather, very wet conditions, and the deer should be out trying to, feed as much as they can because they're burning a lot more calories.
Mm-hmm. So in the next week, if you had to put a number on it for buck movement, let's just talk about bucks on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate the buck movement?
I would say the buck movement, in my opinion, is going to be about 6 or 7.
All right.
And the reason why I say that is that if someone's hunting smartly, a lot of our hunters, because our season starts so early, they're done. They've already filled the freezer, so to speak. They've shot a buck or two, and we see a lot of hunters across the board just start tailoring off hunting right now. And there's less people in the woods. Duck season's open. So the rut's over for the most part, and these bucks should be up and moving. Just hunt smart, figure out where they're going to be, and get after them.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you for the report, Mark, and we'll be talking to you again next year, I imagine.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tyler.
All right, on the phone, I've got Anthony Warren. He is a good buddy of mine. He's been on the podcast already once this year. He's been on it a couple times in the last year, and it's because he's just a big buck killer, and he spends a lot of time out in the woods. Anthony, what's been going on, dude?
Oh, not much, man. I don't know if I'd be considered a big buck killer, but
you are by me.
Thanks.
Yeah, so you've been spending some time in Kentucky, correct?
Yes.
So what's the consensus, man? How's the deer movement look out there right now?
Yeah, it's I think we're kind of in a slight transition right now. We've kind of been dealing with some warmer weather, and we just kind of got into the last few days. We've got some real good, crisp, cold weather, and so it's been slow, but traditionally around this date range, probably the last 3 or so days and probably the next 3 or so days, I've actually seen pretty good movement historically. Seems like some of these younger doe fawns are coming into their first estrus, and it seems like if you can be in the woods right now this time of year, you can generally find some kind of buck activity, still doing some chasing, maybe hitting some scrapes. I've had a lot of historical data around scrapes. Right now, just bucks are really scratching at the last few opportunities out there, and kind of really getting back to a food pattern. So it's kind of a neat time of month for me, just looking back historically. And so I think right now it's been a little slow, but I'm thinking it might pick back up, especially if we can hold some consistently cold temps.
Yeah. So what's you think some of this kind of movement picking up, because you attribute that to less people in the woods? Are you seeing any hunting pressure out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few factors. Really, once you hit Thanksgiving, at least in my neck of the woods, the hunting pressure kind of drops off significantly. You'll have some of the guys that are pretty serious that are still out there grinding. And for the most part, I think that attributes some of the movement. I also feel like this time of year, you get a lot of deer who, they just want to get back to food, and really the does never leave that, but the bucks kind of do. And so I think, the bucks kind of start getting back toward patterns. I feel like you can find some bucks that will just, they've showed up, and maybe they're not necessarily in a historical home range, but they've kind of just ended up somewhere wandering, looking for, the last few opportunities. And generally those are close to food sources. So, and then of course, cold temperatures help really, especially if you want to get a buck on its feet in daylight this time of year. I feel like the colder the weather is, the better chance and opportunity you have of seeing those deer or those bucks up on their feet in daylight.
What kind of food sources do you like?
Yeah, so this time of year, a lot of our ag is picked, but you'll have a lot of just like green like weeds and stuff like that that'll kind of start popping up in the fields, especially on these sunny days. And the deer will go out and, they'll kind of, forage around on that stuff. You might have a few places where there might be, some old standing beans left on the back corner of a field. Usually that kind of stuff I'll key in on. And then, a cornfield, really around this time of year, the deer might be finding a few corn kernels. The downside of technology is that a lot of these combines have gotten so good about not having a ton of spillage, is that there's really not a whole lot of corn left for these deer to go pick. But you will see them kind of out in the fields trying to find any corn kernels, beans that may have been left. And then a lot of it is just kind of like these little weeds that'll pop up out in the field.
Sure. So in the next week, does anything change for you tactically speaking, or does anything change for the deer?
Yeah, I will probably, monitor, a camera or two that I have near a scrape just to kind of see, what level of activity, that I have. Most of the scrapes, though, they're not going to be like the deep timber scrapes that I would historically hunt near the rut. They would probably be closer toward, those food sources. For me, my strategy is really just trying to get between deer and, their bed and food. So if I can be, just on the inside of a corner of a field, where I know a good trail is historically, or maybe even try to find like an area where a deer may kind of low for stage before they hit the big ag fields. Mm-hmm. That's really where I want to be. Really, I'm not hunting a ton of mornings right now, but mornings are good, especially as cold as they've been. So if you can formulate a strategy to come in from like the back door and, get between that ag and known bedding areas, that's a pretty good strategy. But mainly if I can just cut them off between where they're bedding and where they're feeding, sure. That's pretty much my main strategy right now.
Gotcha. So in that next week, based off of weather or whatever you think you want to consider in this equation, what do you guess that buck movement will be like on a scale of 1 to 10 if you had to rate it?
Yeah, so it's a little tricky. I would say that if we hold cold temps, it's probably going to be somewhere in that 4 to 5 range, just because they are going to get up and go eat. I would say it could spike to, a 6, especially if you find like a doe fawn that has come into heat. But I'd say it's going to probably be pretty steady at, mid to marginal movement, somewhere around a 5.
Gotcha.
Overall. Like I said, a lot of that's going to be influenced by how cold we can have the temps and how hungry the bucks are after running all November.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's awesome, dude. Thanks for the report. Appreciate the honesty and all the tips and tactics throughout, man. And I hope you go get them this week.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Those are some great reports. I'm glad we got to talk about things like field, edge hunting, cold fronts, cool weather, and just killing does, because that's what's fun to do in the late season, man. That's a good way to spend a late season afternoon, is going out and shooting some does. Greg has a video, y'all, that came out on our Element YouTube channel. That's really cool. He shoots a nice buck on his family property. It's been his family for a long time. And it's just a really cool little video you should go check out on the Element YouTube channel. Subscribe while you're there, and you get to see all the updates that happen in the new year from us. Also, Shields has a plethora. Most of the stores have a plethora of First Light gear. So if you're needing a last-minute Christmas present, go check out the Shield stores. You can feel and wear and put on the First Light, try it out, and then you can be like, hey, I need one of these for my friend and maybe even one for myself too, if you got the cashola to do the thing. One last thing I'd say, guys, is there is another week of this, but we're coming up on Christmas. It looks perfect on TV. It looks like, you get a Lexus and your smile is suddenly straight and very white if you're a consumer and you're in the automobile market. But listen, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect this time of year. In fact, there's a high chance that I get in an argument with somebody in my family. It's probably my wife. Over this next few days, I really, really am going to try not to, and I don't want to. But it's just not perfect. Nobody has these perfect families that you see, and everybody is putting the good stuff on Instagram. They're not putting the bad stuff on Instagram, and that goes for hunting media too, right? But especially right now around Christmas, I know a lot of people can feel lonely and maybe forgotten or whatever. Reach out to people, and there's somebody out there that'll tell you that they love you. And I mean, you can reach out to us at the Element. I can't promise I'll see it. We get a lot of messages, but if I do, I want you to know I love you too, man. So appreciate all the people who pay attention to this podcast and to what we do at the Element, what Mark does. And I just want to encourage people at this time of year that there's somebody out there that'll that'll take care of you and that will care for you. And if you don't feel like that's the case, start reaching out. Go to church and try to reach out to somebody within a church organization. I think there's places that you can do it. Don't live this season out alone, but at the same time understand that the more people you involve in it, the messier we all are, and the more chance there is of us, making it not a perfect Lexus-style Christmas, right? But I just want you guys to know that, and I want you to think about that, because this is a tough time of year for a lot of people. So if you got some old friends or people you need to check on them. In the meantime, guys, think about the season, the depth of what it means for us as humanity, and I appreciate you guys listening. This has been Rut Fresh. Keep it fresh.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.